Hello, welcome to cEDH Pleasure Brews. I'm Tim, and tonight I'm continuing in my series of beginning cEDH Meta Busters. I'm going to cover Tainted Control, which is a Tasigur build. But before we get started, please check out our Discord and our Patreon. Links are in the description below. And if you like our content, please hit that like, share, and subscribe. It really helps out a ton. I can't even express how much it does. And if you do, thank you very much ahead of time. So without further ado, let's get started. So tonight, I wanted to go over Tasigur by Mattias. It's called Tainted Control. So Tasigur, for those of you who don't know, is a 4/5 for a black and 5 colorless. I know, that sounds like a lot of mana, especially in 2022. But Tasigur has Delve, which allows you to exile cards from your graveyard, reducing the cost. So effectively, pretty reliably, Tasigur is like 1 black or like 1 black and a colorless. Like, it is not uncommon for you to go land, fetch. Like, play a fetch, sack the land, Jeweled Lotus. That gives you 4, and then you exile the fetch land and the Jeweled Lotus, and you have Tasigur on turn 1. Like, that's not an uncommon play. I don't know if I'd necessarily do it that aggressively. I'd probably play like a Fisher or try to curve into a Remora or something. But just to kind of give you an idea, like, it can be played pretty quickly. So Tasigur is a Sultai control shell that will leverage most often Consult and Thassa's Oracle as its win con. I do know that a lot of these decks that I've been talking about lately have Oracle in them, and there's a reason. And that reason is that it's widely considered the best kind of combo package to put in these blue-black X decks. Because it's very hard to interact with. It's very compact and it's only 4 mana, so it's like double blue, black, and 1 if you're playing Tainted Pact, and it's black, blue, blue if you are on the playing Consult. So it's pretty easy to get to, and you can do it kind of early. The second thing is, so at its core, you'll see a lot of the normal Sultai cards kind of in the form of like Assassin's Trophy, Ad Nauseam, Cyclonic Rift, Chain of Vapor, Force of Negation, Flusterstorm, Fierce Guardianship. Obviously, you'll have the normal tutor suite with like Demonic Tutor, Vamp Tutor, stuff like that. Then down in the artifacts, so it's kind of, Tasigur kind of has like 3 layered combo wins. So the first one is you play Isochron Scepter, and then you imprint Dramatic Reversal on it. So as long as you can make 3 mana or more, you can net 1 mana per activation of Isochron Scepter, and then that will allow you to untap the Scepter, as well as all your mana rocks and dorks. So the way it works is you imprint the Dramatic Reversal, you activate the Scepter, a copy of Dramatic Reversal will go on the stack that you may cast. And then the cast will untap all your permanents, including the Scepter. And then as long as you can make 3 mana, you will be netting mana, and then you can go infinite, and then you can activate Tasigur to self-mill and get all your non-land cards back to your hand with the second ability of 2 blue-green hybrid, mill 2, opponent chooses 1 non-land card, puts it in your hand. So not only can you use that kind of as like a grind engine or to help like keep getting pieces of removal and counter magic in your hand, but be warned, don't allow your opponents to over leverage it on you, because they will see a counter spell in your yard and will just keep trying to lean on you to do it. So you kind of have to watch out for getting like bullied a little too hard, as the kids like to say. So just remember that, like, you have to be able to play the political game with Tasigur. That is one of the things with Tasigur that is a thing you will have to learn. So with that, I've already mentioned the Thassa's Oracle Consult. I've already mentioned Dramatic Reversal. Now we kind of get into the third part. So Tasigur has a lot of value engines, as well as a third infinite mana combo. So there's 3 cards in the deck that kind of need to be of note for this. So the first one is all the way down here in the artifacts. It is Birthing Pod. Birthing Pod is Phyrexian green, 3 colorless, and then has an activated ability of 1 Phyrexian green, 1 colorless, tap, and sack a creature. And then allows you to go and get a permanent with mana value 1 above what the sacrifice creature is. So remember at the beginning of the video where I talked about how Tasigur costs 1 black and 5? So that means his mana value is 6, and he can go and Birthing Pod into a 7-drop. Okay? So we'll get to the second part. We'll get to that part in a moment. Next is Neoform. Blue and a green, you sack it. Again, you get 1 CMC higher than what you sack. Eldritch Evolution is green, green, 1 sack, and allows you to get 2 CMC higher or less. So the thing with Eldritch Evolution that the other two don't do is they allow you to get any creature that's 2 mana value higher than what you've sacrificed or less. So, with that in mind, if you Neoform, if you Eldritch Evolution, or you Birthing Pod Tasigur away and you get your 7-drop, there's usually about like 4 or 5 different 7-drops that people will rotate through in Tasigur. I usually only really use 4 of them. In fact, most of the time I only use 3, and those are the 3 that he plays right here. So you get Hullbreaker Horror, which has flash, can't be countered. Whenever you cast a spell, it returns a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Or whenever you cast a spell, you can return a spell to its owner's hand. Target spell you don't control. So you can use it to kind of, oh, I tapped out to play Naws. Haha, not anymore. Back in your hand. Now you got to do it again. Or make them cast counter magic over again multiple times. Like maybe they don't have a pitch card for Force of Will and you just got it back in their hand. Something like that. The other thing is that you can use all the all the mana positive rocks that you're running, like Mana Vault, Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Mox Opal, Mox Amber, to play and then bounce another mana positive rock or just a mana neutral rock back to your hand and net mana, thus allowing you to filter it into Tasigur to make infinite. The next one, which is one that I really like, is Toxrill. That is that's good for helping answer like the board with stacks, because it just puts a 1/1, a -1. It puts a slime counter on every creature that's in play that you don't control, and then creatures as a static ability get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. And then whenever a creature dies, you get a slug, and then you can sack a slug to draw a card. So it draws a card, it helps clear the board, and gives you bodies. So that's not the worst. Mostly it's in here as a board clear and a minor potential like card advantage engine. But that's not really the main reason why you're getting this thing, is because it clears the board pretty fast. Just like the main thing you're like, while this can do other things, its main reason is either A, to bounce stacks off the board, or to be a combo piece. And then the third one, it's kind of a personal favorite of me and Ashani's as well. I don't know if Mattias was listening to us about it. Maybe. But I'm very happy to see it in here. And that is Nezahal, the Primal Tide. This is a 7/7 that can't be countered, gives you no maximum hand size. Those 2 clauses aren't super relevant most of the time. It's really the bottom 2 that are kind of the big thing. So the ability to, whenever your opponents cast a spell, you draw a card. So that's like a Mystic Remora, except they don't have the option to pay 4, that you just draw the card. And then it protects itself by discarding 3 cards from your hand, which you can get back with Tasigur, most likely. And you can exile the Nezahal till end of turn. So it's really hard to kill. And it's a 7/7, so it's a nice little beat stick. I think the deck has a pretty reasonable floor. So it's pretty easy to, like, it's not the easiest deck to pilot, but it's pretty easy to get the basics. And where it gets challenging is the not getting leaned on too hard. And I can't stress that enough. Because what will happen is since Tasigur's ability allows your opponents to choose what goes back to your hand, and it costs 4 mana, and they know that you have it, they will always try to lean on you to get you to activate Tasigur, put the counter spell in hand, and just keep you tapping out, and you're not able to advance your board. So you have to learn how to strike the balance between being the table police, but not being the only one doing all the heavy lifting. And that's where optimal piloting and politics comes into play. Shout out to Cam from the Lab Maniacs, way back in the day. I'll see if I can find the video. Really good Tasigur pilot. His build was a little spicy by today's standards, but he piloted Tasigur very well and used it very effectively. Mattias is a really good pilot. He's done very well with it. Placed pretty well in several leagues. And while he hasn't won a tournament that I'm aware of, he's done very well in a lot of tournaments, like top 16. And really knows everything all around. In fact, reach out to him if you have any questions. He's got a pretty good primer. Goes into pretty good detail. It's not the longest, but it definitely covers what you need. He's always more than happy to answer questions. But I think at its core, it gives you a lot of the good basic cards. There's a lot of, this is kind of a Sultai staple deck at its heart. So you can't really go wrong picking it up. It does budgetize pretty well. The Isochron Scepter combo, the Oracle combo, you can do pretty reasonably cheap. I mean, obviously you can't do it on $100. It's pretty hard. But you can definitely do it pretty modestly or incrementally and kind of upgrade as you go. Obviously, to do the Hullbreaker line optimally, you really need to get things like Mana Vault and Mana Crypt and Chromox. Maybe not those versions because of the sticker shock. But take Chromox, for example. Probably the cheapest version is $70. Mana Crypt's not cheap. But again, these are the kind of pieces you'll need to really be able to do the Hullbreaker line very effectively. Scepter, as long as you're willing to set up a little bit more, you can get away with leveraging these 2 mana rocks more, and the kind of the lower power ones to kind of help with your budget. Lastly, the Tainted Pact mana base off of for Oracle can be a little cost prohibitive, but again, I pretty much consider it essential. I think that in order for you to really be able to pilot this deck effectively, you should at least have Scepter and at least have Oracle in the deck and the mana base and the rocks to support it. I did forget one 7-drop that's very common. Let me see if he has it down in his... Yes, he does. So, one of the very common subs in a more combat-focused meta is Coma, the Serpent. I don't play this one a lot. I tend to stick with the other 3. But it's a good one to kind of rotate through. And I just wanted to make sure it was mentioned. So, when you get to the mana base, obviously, again, there's some expensive cards in here with dual lands and stuff like that. But you can get away with playing a couple of shocks, playing some fetches. They just reprinted all of the Battle Bond. So Morphic Pull is at an all-time low. So that's a good one to get. Marsh Flats, Verdant Catacomb, and Misty are all under $25, which is pretty cheap, comparatively for Magic. I mean, Savior Brash, again, also just got a reprint. It's the lowest I've seen it in 2 years. So there's a lot of the mana base is pretty inexpensive. You can play Hinterland Harbor in here, Yavimaya Coast, Underground River. And so there's a lot of good inexpensive lands that you can use to kind of make up for the old OG duels and some of the more expensive fetches. But again, I just really want to stress that you probably should be able to support Tainted Pact, especially playing Tasigur in a cEDH environment or a competitive kind of tournament-focused environment. The last thing I wanted to go over is that being in Sultai, you get access to some really good card advantage. You get Sylvan Library, Rhystic Study, Necropotence, and Mystic Remora, not counting the Nezahal and stuff like that you have up in the Creature Suite. and the card advantage that you do generate from Tasigur himself. Tasigur also contests the board pretty well. Definitely blocks Tymna's, doesn't block Crom, but can favorably trade with most creatures. Not all. And then what Tasigur can't take care of, you can always neoform him into Tox Roll and keep the board clear. So that is something to think about and keep in mind. So I think I covered the basics. Let me double check. Twister loops, don't really need to go over that because that's something that's in the primer, or we can discuss a different day. I think I covered the basics. Again, if you enjoy our content, please check out our Patreon, and please hit that like, share, subscribe. It really helps out a lot, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good night. Bye.